Funding for the art show was made possible by Montgomery County Arts and Cultural District, the Virginia W. Kettering Foundation, proud supporter of the arts in our community, and viewers like you. Thank you.
In this edition of the art show, an artist actively uses the community. A lawyer who likes to work outdoors. And Africa is the inspiration behind two artists' work. Finally, puppeteers inspire audiences across the nation. It's all ahead on this edition of The Art Show. Hello, I'm Rodney Veal, and welcome to The Art Show, where each week we give you unprecedented access to local, regional, and national artists and arts organizations. Our first artist believes art should be enjoyed by all. The community is not only the inspiration for her work, but she also encourages them to continuously participate in it.
I've been making portraits in public for years now. I started in like 2005, 2006 as a way to get out of the studio. It's just kind of evolved. I've really enjoyed the process. I've gotten to meet wonderful people and work in some very interesting venues, and it's really fascinating. I love working from life. So I started working in public, and people were interested, and they'd come over and watch me. I mean, I'd have this out in the park or in front of the library or in the mall or something like that, little portable studio. And they were interested, and they could see the process and see how absorbed I became in it. And I wanted to communicate that sense that you can focus right here and now while doing this. It's almost like a form of meditation sometimes.
Yeah. So how many of these have you done?
When I had a show in Columbus, 50 people gave them back to me for that exhibit. I give them away, and I was asking someone, hey, could I borrow those portraits back? You know, because I do the drawings and the sculptures. And the woman next to her said, did you want mine too? Or just hers? I was like, oh, I'd forgotten, yes. Yes, I want yours, thank you.
You've done so many.
Yeah.
So how long does it take for you to actually do one?
It does depend. The one that I spent 3 hours while she was studying, her name was Roxy, and she was a student at Sinclair, and she was studying for a geology final, and so she just sat there, and I just sat there, and I didn't disturb her, we didn't talk. That took 3 hours, and it was one of my favorite sculptures. But the other, it just depends.
So you're meeting a person for the first time. So what are some of the challenges that you run into?
I think there's an issue of trust, trying to get them to relax and trust that I'm not going to make them look, odd or something like that. There's just the time, and I think that's why I like it. It's a process, and it's a practice, and it takes time, and you have to take the time to do it.
Yeah, I completely understand that. And so there are a couple of projects that we're going to go back and we're going to talk about them. Tell me about the Canal Men.
Oh, wow, that was a wonderful invitation. Patrick Dowertree, the artist who works with sticks, was coming to town for Wegerson.
Yeah.
And they wanted some local artists to make some public sculptures as well. So I got to pick my site, and it was those canals along Patterson Avenue, where the canal used to be.
Okay.
And I started researching that, and I found the stories were just amazing about the canals and how they were formed and the history, and I was fascinated by it, and I wanted to share that with people. So I made those huge figures and laid them in the bottom among refuse. And then I had all these like little memorial flowers, like the poppies that from the Armistice Day, The people helped me make those in a series of workshops, and I put those in there so that they wouldn't look too forlorn.
So there was another installation called the Worry Dolls. I love that title. So, I mean, what was your inspiration behind that?
That was the Guatemalan Mayan legend about telling the dolls your worries at night before you go to bed, and then in the morning you wake up and you're taking care of it. Well, the worry dolls that I was making were kind of a way to show people that art making is cathartic. You can kind of like put all those worries away. Just worry physically while you do it, and then after that doll is done, you're done. So I invited people to come and worry with me, and I made like a mandala of them. So hopefully I got all that worrying out of the way.
What do you hope the person takes away from this experience of kind of being present in the art making process?
I hope that they get a little bit of what I get from it, and it's a sense of mindfulness, and it's just a way to kind of focus on the moment and just be, and to still all that stuff that's sometimes going on, or me a lot of the time going on in the back of my head, and just kind of focus. I just think that people are fascinated by seeing it come alive. You know, they're like, oh, is that how it works? You know, so I think something soothing about watching and also doing. You know, sometimes soothing, sometimes frustrating. Mm-hmm. I love doing this, like making this for you. And others, you know, they were really touched and pleased with the portrayal. You know, so it's like I'm working with you rather than for you, and I really like that.
That's really cool.
So,
what's exciting you? What's your next level of challenge?
It's mainly the stories. You know what I mean? It's like I can do the idea in different materials. So sometimes the material is interesting and inspires me. The process is something I enjoy, but it's mainly the story, the narrative, or the idea that really gets me excited.
What do you want your legacy as an artist to be?
I'm not sure what I want to leave behind. I've been thinking about stuff, you know, and how much stuff I accumulate and how much stuff there already is out there in the world, and thinking about permanent public art. And I think I like it to be a little bit more ephemeral. I like the projects to be, but I'm not sure I need it to have a legacy, you know? I don't think I need to have anything cast in bronze. Okay, so you ready to see it?
I'm ready to see it.
All right.
All right.
What do you think?
Oh my God. God, you know, oh my God, that is like.
Does it look more like your dad? Oh,
Yeah.
this is where I took a spill last night.
Oh, you took a spill?
Yeah.
Okay. No, it doesn't know, so it was so crazy to see yourself, and that's how I smile. You got it.
Okay.
You got it.
Good. Thank
Oh
you
my
for
God.
modeling.
Oh,
Excellent.
my pleasure. You totally got it.
Okay, cool.
To learn more about how to actively be involved in Lisa's work, visit thinktv.org and click on the art show. Rain, sleet, snow, or sub-zero weather can't stop a passionate artist. In this segment, we meet John Browning, a plein air painter who also has a unique circumstance. He works as a criminal law attorney and tells us how he balances his day job with his passion for outdoor painting.
My day job is I'm a lawyer. I'm a practicing criminal defense lawyer. About 10 years ago, I took up plein air painting. I was a prosecutor first, then I became a defense lawyer, and I've been doing it for about 30 years. You know, I kind of practice law by day and slip in painting when I can. And then about 8 years ago, I was really sick. I had pancreatic cancer, and decided, you know, I'm gonna do something else for a little while. I can't really say that, you know, the cancer thing was the impetus, because I had started painting before I was diagnosed with cancer. And it wasn't like this great epiphany, you know, like, you know, stop and smell the flowers. But it really took the drive to practice law 14 hours a day was just gone. that point. These things, they all ebb and flow, right? Sometimes for short periods of time, sometimes for very long periods of time. I'm intensely focused on what I'm doing in the practice of law. But, you know, it's sometimes the tide's out and then my art picks up. I try to do something art related every day. Sometimes I don't make it. Sometimes if I'm not feeling well, and there are times when I still don't feel well, then I won't do art for 2 weeks at a time. Sky is a huge part of plein air painting. Light changing. It changes not just in light, because on a sunny day I have maybe 2 hours to complete a painting. But you know, you get out and you notice things like the color changes in the bark and the color changes in the buds. You know, people will stop by when you're painting outdoors and they'll say, "This must be so relaxing." And it's relaxing in the way that taking a beating is relaxing. It's hard work, and if you're not focused, then you're playing, and not playing in a constructive way. You're goofing around. It's not nearly as rewarding as when you're in the moment. Painting is, to me, a huge part of mining memories, is not getting in touch, but staying in touch with lives past, with memories past, with family and friends and places. I love painting the places I grew up. You know, I love painting the Midwest. I love painting Ohio and Columbus. You know, it's finding a connection and nursing that connection that painting is to me, I think.
Whether you're experienced or would like to try plein air painting for the first time, join others in a paint-out. The Ohio Plein Air Society hosts them all over the state. Check out thinktv.org and click on the art show for details.
Hi, my name's Jeff Wilson, and we're at my studio here at JP Signs, and this is where I've illustrated and authored a couple of books about Ohio's unique and diverse history and people. It's called Ohio Legends, and it is kind of a cross between Ripley's Believe It or Not meets Ohio. It's all about Ohio and Dayton, and what a wonderful place it is. Every picture tells a story.
We want to introduce as many local artists to the community as we can. So email us a short video like the one you just saw, and maybe we'll give you a quick shout out. It doesn't have to be professional. Just make sure you show us your studio and some examples of your work. In our next segment, two intrepid explorers share stories and pictures from their adventures in Africa. After all these years, the duo's passion for capturing and safeguarding the traditions they've encountered remains at the heart of their mission.
Because we met in Africa, and both Carol and I had been working independently and had done 3 books before we started our collaboration. And when Carol was finishing her first book on the Maasai, her father came to the border of Kenya and Tanzania and decided to give her a birthday present. And the birthday present was a hot air balloon flight, and the pilot was my brother Simon. And they were very young and very attractive, and at 1,000 feet high in the air, Simon looked very closely into her eyes and said, "You know, there's something I'd really like to tell you."
My heart was beating wildly.
And then he said, continuing to look very closely in her eye, he said, "I'd really like you to meet my sister."
My heart sank. We actually met a year later in Nairobi, and we realized that Simon was really right. We were kindred spirits with a shared love of the traditional cultures of Africa and a passion for the nomadic way of life. And it was during that first week together, photographing at a Maasai warrior ceremony on the border of Tanzania shortly after we met, that we shared a dream. We envisioned that one day we would create a comprehensive visual record of the most powerful ceremonies that move African people through life from birth to death.
People don't realize that Africa is 54 countries. It's a very, very big continent. And there's really only one thing that we try to remember, although each country is different, is when you go to Africa, you have to leave all your own value systems behind, and you also have to take on African time, which is very different to our time. And what we do when we're in very remote areas is when we first enter a village, we find the village chief, and then we usually sit with him, maybe under an acacia tree, and talk with him, get to know him, get introduced to the community, and then we don't take our cameras out.
What's really special is that when you're a woman, you're protected by the community. You're not a threat. I mean, historically, the men would be killed and the women absorbed, so that we always felt that we were surrounded and enveloped and had an advantage being women. We could sit with women and become one of them. And the longer you spent with women, the more they'd want to dress you and put little lines of scarification on your face and tress your hair and give you new names and absorb you into their community and share secrets that no man could access. The challenge was when you suddenly wanted to jump off and go and record a male ceremony, you'd become a woman, and it wasn't absolutely acceptable to go running off with a man. And we discovered that one of the little transitional devices was our camera jackets and our trousers. Because the minute we put on our Western clothing, our photography clothing, we were immediately genderless and could go off and photograph with the men.
I think in a funny kind of way, once you've lived for 40 years in Africa and you've spent, say, 7 months of each year traveling in Africa, and our work has led us to now cover 40 countries and probably 170 cultures, everything becomes possible, feasible, understandable, but there's still some things that we find very difficult, and maybe one of the hardest to watch has been, and it is something that we've only just got permission to do because it's not a ritual that people usually allow you to record. It's the ritual of scarification, and the reason that this is difficult to record is that people actually don't want outsiders to see the process of scarification, and scarification is one of the oldest forms of beautifying the body, like the outer body painting.
What's remarkable is that a girl may have maybe 100 cuts made with a small knife or a razor blade, creating the pattern, and she doesn't flinch and she shows no pain. She's almost got a passive, stoic, reaction to pain. And what happens is very small cuts are made, and then a herbal irritant is rubbed in so that the cut heals with a raised pattern, a little raised bump, and creates what's considered to be a very beautiful, symmetrical, curvilinear design on her chest.
So when you see things that are maybe hard for us to understand, one also realizes that here is a community that are actually, for many, many, many centuries, aware of what makes it possible to live in a remote area, what makes it possible to survive, what are the ingredients of human happiness.
When we completed our last book on painted bodies, we took it back to Africa to share with all those Africans who had helped us make it, and of course to give them copies. And we took it first to the Sahara Desert to show the Wadabe nomad chief, Makau. Makau had seen only 2 or 3 books in his entire lifetime. He opened painted bodies and he went from page to page studying each image meticulously. And at the end of the book, he looked up at us and said in his language, "This is Magani Yegitata," which means medicine not to forget.
We receive quite a few emails each week, so keep contacting us with your story ideas. Let us know what sets you apart from other artists. Send an email to theartshow@thinktv.org. Include contact information and links to performances or art samples online.
Hi, I'm John Emery, and the tip that I have for watercolor painting is pigment will follow water. So if you want to paint anything on a dry piece of paper, you paint the outline in clear water and then add pigment to the center of it, and it'll flow all the way to the edge and stop.
Finally, we step on stage and meet the talented puppeteers behind the production of Warhorse. So how do they breathe life into the star of the show, the Warhorse puppet? Let's find out.
We inspire so many people. We tear up. We're all saps for theater, and that's why we're here. And we love it. The magic works for us every single time, as it does for our patrons. Proctor's is a complex of theaters, and we have the main stage at Proctor's, and we have the GE Theater at Proctor's, where we are right now, which was built during our reconstruction, and it has 400 seats, and it's a nice complement to our much larger main stage. Warhorse was a wonderful surprise for us because it wasn't top of mind in the Broadway community with your average Broadway crowd. It wasn't singing and dancing and beautiful girls and handsome guys. The message of Warhorse, it's unstoppable. It's been a terrific sales success, and we're very proud of the community to embrace a show that's not just your average Broadway show.
In 2004, an associate director came to the National Theatre of Great Britain, and he knew immediately coming in that he wanted to work with this puppet company, the Handspring Puppet Company, based in South Africa.
The inspiration for this horse actually came from a show that Handspring Puppet Company did before in the early 2000s called Tall Horse, which was a show about a giraffe. And the National Theatre of London had been visiting Handspring Puppet Company, saw that show.
There was some kind of talk about it, and then Handspring was approached and said, "This is perfect. We can,
So they started on prototypes for making these horses. It took them a really long time to figure out how to make a lot of the mechanisms work. Most importantly, how to make a puppet bear weight and be able to move on stage. And they had lots of different ideas that they tossed out before they landed on this.
From that, one thing led to another, and they decided to create this piece of theater. They mounted the first production in 2007 at the National Theatre, and then it moved eventually to the West End. There have since been productions all over the world. The show starts and you see these three puppeteers with this horse on stage, and within minutes you don't see them anymore and you just see a horse. The three of them really work together to make you just see an animal on stage for the duration of the show.
I'm the hind puppeteer. We work on Joey and Top Thorns.
I'm the heart puppeteer. I'm the head puppeteer. And the three of us work together to create the character of Joey. Both his emotional life, his physical life. Everything that you see is the three of us. When you look at the horse, it's not intended to look like a living horse. There's no horse skin on it. It's not supposed to be, oh wow, that looks, you can't even see the puppeteers. But because of the natural materials and because of the suspension of disbelief, which we hope to make easy for you, you completely forget about that. And within minutes, this sort of almost skeletal horse becomes extremely real.
When I first started out in terms of working on the puppet technically, my entire focus and my awareness was all about how do I make these legs move like a horse's front legs move. And so then I was basically just entirely focused on that. And as my awareness began to get larger and larger, the scope of my awareness, so that I was less worried about how the legs are, and more worried now about what I'm being asked from my teammates and what I'm being offered from my teammates. And then as that becomes second nature, then all of a sudden you're able to react together while doing what you need to do, while listening to what you're getting from either your heart or whatever you're getting it from. And then also taking your impulses off of whoever's talking to this horse or whoever's stimulating this horse.
Suddenly, you just know what your teammates want without them saying anything to you. We don't talk to each other in the show, but Patrick can lean forward and push me just the slightest amount, and that's enough to know he wants to move forward, and it's really exciting.
The biggest compliment is when people say that we disappeared, and I do really take that to heart. When Joey comes out for his big bow at the end and we get a huge cheer, I mean, we know that's for us, and we're really proud to be a part of that. And the other thing I think that I'm really proud of is that this is a show that I think really stands for why live theater is still relevant. It's an experience you can't have anywhere else.
I would love for an audience to take away a very personal experience where they formed a relationship with a character who went on a journey that saw a conflict in a way in which they've never seen it portrayed before.
We deeply believe in this art form, and especially mixing, of course, Joey with it and the message with animals and horses, and there's so many horse people in the region. So this is just a perfect coming together, and we hope that as many people as possible can come out and share it with us.
I saw this show when it was here in Dayton, and it was phenomenal. If you got a chance to see it, you should do it. And that wraps it up for this edition of The Art Show. Until next time, I'm Rodney Veal, and thanks for watching the show.
Funding for the Art Show was made possible by Montgomery County Arts and Cultural District, the Virginia W. Kettering Foundation, proud supporter of the arts in our community, Ohio Arts Council, Ohio Humanities Council, and viewers like you. Thank you.